Okay, so I'm going to just continue. I might, in other instances, might think about like, well, do I want this to actually be two distinct layers where this is a piece on top of another piece underneath? And so, that's something to consider, that maybe I model this part separately underneath. But given that I don't have it separated right now and I don't have the underneath piece, I'm just going to make it a continuous um, chunk here. So let's start doing the kind of the rib cage part. So again, trying to work as big as I can whenever I have the opportunity to. It's really easy to get caught into sort of noodling, even with topology, I find. So I think I'm going to try to define this, again, the bottom of the rib cage, the same way that I kind of define this, and then connecting the bits should be pretty basic. Let's see here. Come on. Go. Let's see here. Sometimes it's not always clear, where you should make a hard edge. Some stuff is just kind of implied. So there are times. I mean, here it's not so bad, but there are times when you'll realize like that you need to make some design decisions here, and where you're just exactly how you're having your edges flowing with topology. So again, you need to be thoughtful about it. Let's see here, and then up on the top, let's see. Let me separate up this piece. It's going a little bit faster now that I kind of have a method for it. I forgot to share the results of the AI aided design, so I'll show you. Some of them are kind of ridiculous, but every once in a while there's something like you'll find like, oh, there's something about the chest armor, or this, just even like the straps or something that you're like, I like that. So I'm going to kind of use that, just a reference for that. And so that, for me as a modeler, like, a lot of times the way I model stuff is, I usually have concept art from somebody else, but there are times when the concept art is vague, or if I'm doing something on my own and, again, I'm not using AI or something, but I'm having to gather a bunch of references for stuff. And if I'm doing like a medieval costume design, or, there's a lot, I'm gathering a lot of real world reference, but I'm not just like taking any one thing and using it. A lot of it is like figuring out, how things actually work, and then doing your own sort of design. Maybe that's kind of like an amalgamation of three other, real world things. And the thing is, that's how concept artists work as well. This idea that everything comes from your imagination without reference is really, absurd. I used to kind of feel like that if I was using reference, that meant I wasn't really an artist. But it's, you realize that you're studying things, and that's how you become competent. So again, with AI, it's kind of like, I look at it as like really advanced internet searches for stuff, like much faster than you can do it. So, but again, like with an internet search, I never just take an image of something and be like, there, it's mine, I did it. So. In a way, it feels a lot like being an art director using AI. So here, like, things are pretty vague, so I've got to just decide where that edge is. I want to make this a discrete sort of chunk, so I've got to, instead of just connecting it that way, I need to, again, define that perimeter. Okay, so good. This is one thing I find really annoying. Is looking, the fact you can see the other side of that, it's like not helpful at all. And if I turn on backface culling, it's like even worse. So. Okay. Is anybody having any difficulties with this? It's just a bit tedious. Beyond that, yeah, I'm do a little bit more of this, and you guys can take. There's going to be an assignment for today. It's going to be more of a design kind of assignment, hopefully fun for you guys, creature design. So I don't need to. You guys get the idea of this. I'm not going to finish it. I'm going to just bring some of it in. I'll get as much of it done as I can in like the next half hour, and then export that, bring it into ZBrush, and then we'll go on to the next assignment. Basically, it'll start showing you guys some of the techniques in ZBrush using Z-spheres, but also we'll take a look at what we can come up with AI-aided design, just to kind of help us out a little bit. So the reason, again, I think it's probably clear, but trying to make sure these shapes are all defined very clearly, like that each separation has a clear edge defining it, because you'll find that then when you get back into ZBrush and you're trying to utilize the crease function, and you're like, oh, this edge actually goes like maybe like splits diagonally across two shapes, and yeah, it would work for just retopologizing, but it doesn't help me get the sort of a sharp machined look that I'm going for. And so I really, I make mistakes with it all the time. So I'm trying to be very diligent about just exactly how I'm doing that. So like making sure that I'm kind of outlining each shape is the way that helps make sure that I'm doing that. So, it takes a little bit longer, but ultimately it saves me time and not having to come back in here 3 different times to fix some topology errors or fix them in ZBrush. Are any of you going to take the rotary airplane engine and try to turn it into like a portfolio piece? Maybe.
That sounds like a good idea.
It sounds like a good idea, or not a good
It's
idea.
100% a good idea. I just don't want to do that.
Great idea. Let's pin that on the
Yeah, I'll
to do later. You know, I mean, it could be something for like next semester when you guys are really working on portfolio stuff, like to take that through to the end.
We have a portfolio class where we can choose one assignment
Yeah.
to do. We use it for that one.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, there's a lot of potential for taking it as kind of as far as you want.
I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
Cool.
Definitely my strongest.
Nice, that's great. It's always, I mean, it's awesome if you get something from a class that then translates into a portfolio piece. When I was in school, like, you know, to do like a full character model didn't take nearly as long then, right? Because you didn't have, there just wasn't as much that like a game could handle. So you were modeling characters that were maybe between 6,000 and 12,000 triangles total. And then all you had to do is like, okay, you UV map that and then create a texture in Photoshop. Basically, it could be using, you know, some photo reference and then hand painting or whatever, but it didn't involve like sculpting a bunch of detail. The hard surface stuff you could, I guess, still do, but still there was just not the ability to do as much detail. The more detail you were trying to do, the more likely it was that you had stitched together some photographs to create the texture. So I was able to, like, in my modeling classes, so it was much more focused. I just had like a whole year focused on character modeling. It was like the second half of, it was basically like a 2-year program. And I had already created, like, using the method that our teacher taught us, I had created like dozens of characters, just like, okay, because it was all based off, his whole method was based off of photographs that you used, you know, you have good reference photographs that you use to stitch together textures that you then, it was really interesting. You would start with your texture and then, you know, create a basic model from a primitive, stamp the texture on it immediately, and then start modeling it with the texture on it, kind of like trying to inflate the model to fill out the texture. It was an interesting approach. It was good for doing the kind of stuff that he was doing, which was like, he had been working at EA Sports and doing like soccer players and stuff. So it was all real world stuff that you had real actual photo reference for. But I wanted to be more creative, and like I was like, well, if I wanted to make a troll where I don't have a real world photograph, like what do I do? You know, how do I do that? And so then you end up learning different methods. I learned, you know, hand painting as opposed to just using photographs, and I, you know, became a much better artist when I was actually employed. But yeah, it was interesting. So I was able to do a bunch of stuff just to practice, and then decide, okay, well, what do I want my portfolio to be, and work on that portfolio for the last, I can't remember if it was quarters or semesters, but I think it was like, because it was 18 months solid. But yeah, so anyways, so if you get something from class that can be, you know, portfolio worthy, that's great. Because honestly, there's not really enough time in the classes, you know, unless you just do one thing from beginning to end. But it's still like,
Yeah, for Topher's class, I spent the last 10 weeks put off all of his other assignments working on them from my portfolios.
yeah. What is Topher's class? Is that a model class too?
No, right now yours is the only model class we're taking this semester.
Oh, okay.
But his is a capstone 1 for motion design.
Oh, okay, cool,
Yeah.
cool. He's got kind of like a good generalist background, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great.
He's done a lot of like motion. Yeah, it's kind of like all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like Nick Ogilvy also kind of knows how to do everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, he seems like a good teacher from what I can tell. He's a cool guy, anyways.
Yeah, I'd say they both are.
Yeah, I don't think I've spoken with Topher.
I'd like to see y'all two in a room.
Oh, like a fight to the death? That's kind of like,
Who's having a conversation? Like, y'all seem to have similar ideas about AI. So
Oh, okay.
talking about something like that, it'd be cool to see the conversation.
yeah, I've spoken like a lot with Nick about various things, you know, over the years that I've been here, and you know, he's somebody that I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's he's a really cool guy. I like him quite a bit. He seems like very mellow. I mean, he teaches like 4 classes here typically, right? Like
in one semester.
yeah, like a lot. Yeah.
All different subjects.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a lot. I interviewed with DigiPen, and they're gonna if they want to give me some classes. They're great because they're like, the guy's just like, you know, wants me to help expand their sort of what they offer, and he was like, you can teach whenever you want. You can say, because it's like you can teach online or in person, and you can say, I only teach from 6 to 9 at night, and that's in your classes. And I'm like, okay, this sounds fantastic, but it's probably not going to start until the fall. Certainly not if I get, I'm interviewing with Apple, and they're wanting to continue with that process, so that's positive as well. But
Would it be their like Apple, like what branch of Apple?
you know, I don't know exactly, but it has to do with helping to train their machine learning stuff. So it's like whenever they don't have real world assets to reference. They need 3D stuff that's like highly realistic to help teach the AI, I guess. So they really liked the medical stuff. It was weird, the stuff that they like. But they said it would be kind of like that. So it's not games. But I'm still working on, I'm going to continue working on the startup and teaching, and ultimately it'd be great if I could just do the startup and teaching and not have to go work for somebody else. Really. Okay, so this is bugging me a bit. It was going to be too, I need to round it out a little bit. Do you guys know what Nick does outside of teaching? I mean, is he more of like mostly a painter?
No, he, as far as I know, he does like drafting.
Oh, okay.
Stuff like architecture.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. But when I was talking to him about it like a year and a half ago.
Okay. Kind of like a consultant, or does he work for a company as well? Because that.
I think he's like does a contract.
Okay, because man, it's just like the guy's gonna be so busy.
Oh yeah, and he was.
Does he have kids too?
He's 4.
Okay.
Yeah. He was working on 2 video games that he was like designing and doing himself, I think.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to get in touch with him, see if he wants to help us out at some point, because we need well, we're gonna need like an environment artist at some point. Let's see, this is not right. Be like, hey, you want to work for free? Because that's what we're all working for, basically. Why did this not look right? Is this okay? Yes. So right now, like a bunch of the stuff that I'm seeing LinkedIn, like, oh, here's this job that you'd be great, and it's all like working for equity, which is like basically they're not, they don't have any money, and it's like, yeah, I get it, you have to start somewhere, but I mean that's what we're doing as well. But I just couldn't ask people to work for free. Let's see, why does this look wrong to me? Okay, this is bugging me. Something about this is really, it's just like. I really like things to be symmetrical and nice, and I'm like, why am I not able to? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's because it's so. Okay. And this has to be in the middle. But it'd be like, it's like, oh, this perfect character artist role for me. That nope, that's not going to pay me either. So.
You're not like. Are like VCs not funding as many startups as they used to? Because I remember startups like.
Well, there probably are. I mean, right now though, who knows how much of it has to do with the current economic climate as a whole, but there's just not much liquidity in markets in general, and so people are very afraid about what's going to happen with the economy, and once they get a sense that they know what's happening, they're going to want it. Rich people are going to want to put their money somewhere, right? They want to invest in something, and so then you'll start to see that that money, kind of, and more liquidity get put into markets, and that will include the gaming, and I would assume, but then like what we're doing. The guy that I'm working with, well, actually, it's quite a number of people now, but Ash, who's the main founder, he says he's willing to have investors, but only in the context of like an angel investor and with very specific terms. But as soon as you get investors, you get people that, start wanting to make decisions about what you're doing, and they can also pull their money, whenever they want. So that's. We're hoping to get something small out the door that people can play that generates interest, and then somehow, I don't know what his plans are for, just like a small, like, but here it costs $1 to play this game or whatever, or hey, like, if you want to see us continue, donate what you think is reasonable if you have money to donate. There's a lot of software out there that's like that. That's it's free, but we'd love donations, so pay what you think is worth, that sort of thing. I don't know if that's his plan exactly either. I think that he's still, I just don't talk to him much about that because I don't expect to actually ever make any money from this. My approach is like, no, I'm not going to make money, but I'm learning, and it's a great experience, and I'm doing something I enjoy, and I don't have a job anyways, so and it keeps me super busy.
Yeah. What type of game is it?
Well, this is gonna be like a kind of action RPG. Ultimately, the focus is on right now is creating a really gratifying mechanic for using magic, and the idea is that he has a published tabletop game that has like a small following, and so there's a whole world. He has this like hundreds of pages of stuff written out and beautifully arted up and everything that you can go and read about this whole world that he's created, and but the idea ultimately is that we want to have a system of magic that is like rune based, and part of the game is like, you find different runes that you then can combine in ways that sometimes like unpredictable ways to create spells, and so you have your kind of unique experience of gathering runes and then trying to combine them, and then but just have it mechanically have a good mix of that kind of skill of combining stuff, but then also just very rewarding. So more focused on magic than combat.
Nice.
But you have to start with just, again, everybody has all these ideas, and it's like, well, no, all we're trying to do is get this basic rewarding mechanic, this single thing that's fun to do.
Yeah, I just bought a game that was like $10. Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
It's called Retop.
What do you do? Repossess stuff?
No, it's like, have you ever seen like Lethal Company, or it's like a game where you're like hired by a company to go and collect these like scraps or something.
Okay.
And it's like and this version of that type of game is they're like a bunch of monsters and you're like robots, and so you go and collect this like televisions and it's valuable stuff.
Yeah.
And you have to go drop them in the drop zone and put on, and then you get money for it, and your friends die or whatever, you pick their heads up and put them in the thing, and they'll be like rebuilt. But it just like, it was an easy sell because it was only $10, and I
Yeah.
think the market's great for like a cheap
Yeah, no, I mean that's exactly. And then with it's like, okay, here's an update to it to cost another. That's the one really great thing about, you have like Steam or other, the ability to put out something that's small that you can continue to build on, and publishing costs are low, right? You don't have to actually create a physical. Like that's a huge cost to print out, all those copies of something, right? That's like a huge cost that you then usually needed a bigger publisher like EA or Warner Brothers or something like that. And so to not have to deal with that, and then also, of course, there's all these free assets everywhere that were like, he purchased a template for an RPG in Unreal. So there's like a template game that's like, okay, we need to create all the art for it and polish some stuff up. But one of this programmer who is starting working with us, he's like, yeah, I actually have this whole lighting system that I already built for this, so you have like, great like atmospherics and stuff like that. So then there's just the free Unreal assets too that we could use to kind of populate the world with trees and rocks and stuff like that to make it look good. And then the stuff that's really unique, it would be characters and creatures, but like, there could be a lot of NPCs that we probably just buy, but I'll be creating like, base outfits that can be mixed and matched and stuff like that to create a larger variety of characters. And then of course there's just the Unreal's system for that.
Yeah, no, Unreal's crazy. Just how much optimization you can have for how.
Yeah. So that's what I think is, I'm trying to focus on that as opposed to just like, like complaining about AI or saying it's not, it's just, okay, I get it. Do I wish it wasn't here and that the game industry functioned the way it did 20 years ago? Like, yeah, I do, but it's here. So I just, what are we going to do? Make it illegal? It's like, it's just not going to happen. It's like, this is now how it is,
Yeah, one of my favorite AI tools is called Mixma.
Right.
It's like where you put your 3D models in and it'll auto rig them.
Oh, nice.
And it'll have a bunch of base just animations that someone, I assume, went in and
Yeah.
created. It only works for humanoid things.
Yeah,
Which is like
biped.
But it's it's just nice and simple. Like when I'm trying to do stuff that is not really necessarily like for a 3D class, it's like I do it for Topers a lot. It saves me a bunch of time instead of having to spend like 2 weeks making a character and doing animations for it. I can just
Yeah, there's this idea of like, when you kind of realize like, I don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time, like I remember this guy, I think he was kind of joking, but it was like, he was a QA guy and I really liked him. I mean, I always thought like, wait, is this guy like giving me shit or does he actually really like me? So it's kind of funny, but he ultimately, he was a good guy. But I remember him saying like, so when you create like characters, like all these character faces and stuff, do you like, you know, how do you do it? How do you do something? He's like, well, I have a base head that I've already made, and then I sculpted different. He's like, so you just like, you reuse the same line over and over again? He was like really disappointed. He's like, that's like cheating. I'm like, how? Like, why should I start over every single time? But that's how I used to do it. I used to just be like, no, I'm going to start from the beginning and build this, this way. And it's like, that's really dumb. Why continue to do that? Like, again, I don't need to, especially if it's something I already built. Like, why would I then be like, nope, I can't reuse the one that I already made? That's like, God. So now I'm even like, went in, for this character that I'm making right now. Again, it's just a, I've spent about 2.5 weeks on it now, and it's about ready to go in the game as a good block out, pretty detailed. But I utilized like the face for Talion from Shadow Mordor. I have that, and I started with that because I know that I was like, well, there's a lot wrong with that model, but the face itself I know was considered generally appealing. So I start from there and then just modified it. Like I just projected it onto my model and then modified it a little bit. But just like, yeah, this way I know that these parts work. And this is just a, kind of a placeholder anyways, but it's definitely a solid starting point. And also just reusing the base geometry for the bodies that I was using in XDefiant. It's like, well, I'm not going to use the models, the art part of it, but I'm certainly going to use the base geometry that I would sculpt on anyways. It's like, I could rebuild it, do it myself in a day, but like just save a day and, and use work that I already made, I think technically Ubisoft could like sue me about it, but they're never gonna, unless you guys tell them. But it's like, oh yeah, there's studios that you've shut down for projects that you've closed, that. Okay, so. It's also a really good idea to start creating a library of your own things, like brushes, like insert brushes that you create in ZBrush. You should always export those so that you have them for future use. And it reminds me, I'm going to show you guys something today. Like I've already showed you how to do insert meshes, but I want to make like a strap with a buckle and show you guys how you can, because this is something that we would ultimately need. Like, well, I need kind of like straps for the shoulder thing, but just a simple way to make a strap that you can then reuse over. It saves a lot of time. It's a little bit of time investment up front, and then it saves you a ton of time down the road, and you have consistency in a model, and maybe you just replace the buckle or whatever. But unless you guys already feel like, nope, you already know. If I said make a strap with a buckle as an insert mesh, does anybody know how to do it?
Not efficiently.
Yeah. Okay.
You could rough it out.
Yeah. Okay. So disappointed.
No, honestly, I probably could do a buckle. I always underestimate myself until I sit down and actually start thinking about
But to create an insert mesh out of it, do you guys remember how to do that? Well, it's good. I'm going to show you again. So, I don't mind showing you again, but it's one of those things that you probably see me doing. You're like, well, I don't need to do that right now, so I'm not going to pay any attention. And then you need to do it. You're like, oh, shit. 'Cause that's how I am sometimes. I need to be in there working on something. That's the best way. Most people learn better that way, like hands-on. When you have an actual problem you want to solve, it's amazing what you start to understand. It's another reason I encourage people to, when they're going to work on a character, that like designing, and they're early in their sort of learning how to make character stuff, is to design something where you're not sure how to make it, because then you're going to learn a lot, and when making it, you're going to figure out certain techniques, rather than like a lot of times what students will do is they'll have a design, because I've done this class in many different ways. One time I did it as just like, this is a character design class. It starts with the design of and approval of a character concept, and then going through the whole workflow of creating a character with milestones and so forth. And one of the requirements was that the students committed to that design, rather than, because I got tired of hearing this like, oh, I was going to do it like this, But then I just decided to do it this way. It's like, oh, you mean the really easy way that didn't require you to learn something new. And I could tell, it's very transparent when people are doing that so because you suddenly realize like this is going to be a lot of work. And that's also, of course, part of decision making early on in the concept. But I think it's valuable to take stuff on where you're like, I don't, like, I'm not great. I've never used Unreal's hair. That I know that it basically uses curves that you can generate in XGen. It's like, okay, well, I've used other hair creations plugins like Ornatrix, and so I know I can learn XGen, but it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to learn how to do it. And so, like, I just need to sit down and do it. But that's like one of the next things that I'm going to be needing to really learn, especially since Unreal can do it apparently so well. But then here's the big caveat to that. When it comes to, if you ever are in a situation where you're working on a project with you and your friends or whatever, you have to think about what are the resources that you have a lot of and what do you not have, and you have to make decisions about how to spend those resources. And you can look at, say, okay, this is what this particular game engine, and that we as a team, we can do well. So let's lean into those strengths rather than trying to do a bunch of stuff that we don't really know how to do. We're not sure it'll be successful, or that forces an engine or whatever technology we're working with to do something that's not really meant for. So that's a big frustration that I've had a lot of times with art directors, is that they refuse to sort of work within the constraints of the tech, and they are constantly asking for more, and it's just a waste of time with very little payoff for it. Hair being a big example of it. Like, nobody really cares how good the hair looks if the game sucks. Like, it's like the hair looking great, or even the game looking great, is not going to keep you playing it for very long. So like a good example is like if you have a game like what we're trying to do, and I'll again, I already made hair, but it's just with solid geometry, and I made like a braided hairstyle, like kind of like Ragnar from Vikings, right? Just a braided, pulled back, and then in a ponytail. And but I'm going to try it with Unreal to see, like, is this easy enough to do this? I might even be faster than modeling it out. But for a game like the one that we're trying to make, it's not about your hair. Like, it would be much better to spend the time on like VFX to make the magic really cool, like really rewarding when you do something with it. You learn a new spell or whatever, that the reward is like really substantial. What am I doing here? Okay, so I got the perimeter done. I'm just going to now quickly fill this stuff in, and then we'll take a break. And then I'll just get it into ZBrush really quick, and then we'll move on to the other part. Oh, sorry, it's taking a bit longer than I thought, but now this part should go pretty quick. you guys can take a quick break and I'll finish this up and then go to the next stage. Okay, so I'm going to keep working on this, but you guys are welcome to take a break if you need to. Okay. That's too much. We're going to do this much faster than It's a good density here. So we're going to continue through entirely. I'll do one thing, so I'll leave this kind of mess with like this right now, because this part is going to be detailed. I can then polish it using like literally polish deformation function and ZBrush and do everything out in there and then just project it. So that's how I'll fix all that. So patches there now. Very messy. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think it's still going, isn't it?
Just checking.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah, sorry, I really wanted to get this done like half an hour ago, but it's just got a little bit too messy in here. Whoops. If I was in this for myself, I would probably back out of this and, you know, get rid of some of this and retopologize it again, like in ways that are more efficient. But so we'll see.
Do you want me, when I upload the video, do you want me like speed that part up?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or either speed up or cut it back.
You can just speed it up. It's okay.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, it's just not like. Yeah, but the kind of the issue, I guess, is that this surface is really segmented, and so I kind of, by needing to make all of the sort of pieces very clearly separate, it necessitated more polygons early on than I really would have liked to do. I'm almost done. Just a question of trying to even out these sides. I'm getting there. It's starting to even out a little bit. I'm trying to stop just in case you guys want a little hint. I just take the border, right, where I want the hard edges, and those parts I distribute the way that I want them to be distributed. And let's see here. So I don't have to move everything kind of by, like, so manually. Okay? And then up here, and then I can just start relaxing everything else. And it kind of gets in line. There it is. going to go ahead and export this. And right, so then you guys quickly. We'll do a welcome backend, just so good. And then here's the big screen, import the object. Okay, so about that here. So it's pretty dense. I'm going to put a solo mode, and I think let's turn on Sentry. We go here, and animation, polish that a bit, okay, and now we project. Okay, polish it more. Okay, so what I'm going to do here now, I've got this as a outer shell, but I want to go to geometry, edge loop, and every panel loop gives a little bit of thickness. I'll get two loops at a very slight level. Maybe not that big. Sure. Okay. And then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to start creasing some edges. And hopefully, in most cases, I have edge loops that allow me to do it pretty easily. Let's go. Nope. So I thought I had it, but I don't. So yeah, that's how I. So I'm gonna have to go in a little bit manually and do some greasing. So yeah, I screwed that up. Not a good example for me. So. So overall, this model, I kind of, again, I think I just got a little bit lost in it, and this having it this high poly count already just makes it a little bit harder to do what I need it to do. It's not impossible. It's just like I'm gonna have to make more adjustments here. And it has, I think that because it was such an organic shape, it made it a little bit challenging. When you let's see, increase poly groups as well. So let's say I have this right here, this edge, I want it to be creased. I really need to make sure that this part is creased too, so that otherwise it'll like be a really hard edge, and then it'll suddenly kind of it'll look a little bit weird. It's going to try to like soften out. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to actually kind of manually indent this a little bit so that there's actually something. Let's see, let's lower this intensity. So like if I have, anyways, I've given you guys lots of examples of how to not do things, but then there's, of course, there's some problem solving I can engage in. Like see how there's the lumpiness here, but I can see, I want to get rid of that. I can just actually start going in and, let's see here, get rid of that, right? And then suddenly it straightens that out, and then we'll see about, and I will add these loops back, but by doing this, I'm kind of helping kind of straighten some stuff out a little bit right in here. Anyways, the point is now, start passing here and say, this is here. This is only problematic here. Maybe please. So what I had before is so much better. So I don't know where I got, like, somehow, I think it's probably because I was talking to you guys, but this is really a bad example of how to do this. So, but the point is, you retopologize, and then you should have a nice clean bit here. So let's do this. Let's just take a part that's actually reasonably good. So here, increase the polygroups. Use this. Divide it a few times, and then increase all, and then divide it again. And then, so that's the point, is to be able to get these nice, like, sort of gentle curves that have precision in them. So anyways, other than ignoring the results, the process is the one that I would use. Again, I have no idea how I got so lost in that. Going back to the Maya file here. So really should have gone like this, right? Start this big. That, and kept it just, I shouldn't, I allowed myself to get pulled into trying to get those details out. And so that's a really bad habit to fall into. So it's one that I always try to emphasize to you guys about staying, working big and then gradually getting smaller. And then, it's very easy to get distracted. Just working like this, basically, to start off with. You get the idea, okay? And then you can do a little bit more, but really trying to stay, the smallest I would want quads to get would be about like this size, really, okay? So that's the way you should try to do it, because then when I bring this piece in there, and I subdivide it, I have total control, or I have much better control over the curves, right? You get a very exact curve, and so it's, you just don't want to let it get too tight. So in this instance, like that's why maybe it would have been better for me to just go, okay, I've done this piece, then I break it out, and then I do another piece, and then break it out, and then combine them. So, anyways, yes, okay, and you do. So approaching it like that, so you can stay out of trouble. Problem is, again, like I was saying, I was trying to get the perimeter, which you do want to do. You have to get that, but I think starting with it was the problem. So I need to start like this, and then when you get into these areas here, then you start going, okay, now I need to break this out a little bit, but I've already got all of this stuff here, the supporting stuff, okay? So I kind of approached it in a backwards way. I'd like to say I did that on purpose, but I didn't. It wasn't a learning tool or teaching tool, just me screwing up. Okay, so again, about like this big, okay? Because then I can really, I don't want all the contours of this, right? All of this lumpiness, I don't actually want that at all. And if I do too many polygons there, that lumpiness is going to come through. So I don't want it to be high enough resolution that it picks up all of the little imperfections. The whole point is to get rid of them. I'm very annoyed with myself for that. Okay. So like this. Okay. But I do want to show you something. I'm going to allow you guys to work on this, like in case you didn't finish it. I'll give you the instruction that allow the next assignment to start next week, so we won't have the next one due until the following week. Okay, but you can see, like, this is what I should have done. It would have gone so much faster, and we would be able to cover a lot more stuff, and you wouldn't have to sit and watch me do all this. All right. Any questions about how not to screw up? All right.
What's the hotkey for the subdivider, not the subdivider?
To split.
Yeah.